Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second session of Piano Cleveland's Listening Series, your guide to the 2021 Cleveland International Piano Competition. My name is Jeroen Kohlberg, and I'm president of Piano Cleveland. So the competition is coming up, and we were thinking to give you the opportunity to get excited by the competition and to get to know even more, even deeper about piano music and to be an active part in it. Those attending all three sessions of the listening series get to be official armchair jurors during the Cleveland International Piano Competition. So when the competition starts, the first two rounds, we encourage you to listen to the contestants, hopefully to all of them, but even if you listen to some of them, that's okay. And then we're going to send out an electronic ballot which allows you to vote. And your winner is going to win $1,500. We would like to thank the generosity and support of the Leonard Krieger Fund of the Cleveland Foundation. And we also want to thank our partners here at the Bob Stop, Steve and Gabe. In this project, we're excited to collaborate with our hosts, the Bob Stop, as well as with the Gilmore Steinway Select School, thanks to the generosity of Matthew Figge, as well as Praxis Fiber Workshop in Waterloo Arts District. Now, let's hear a little bit from our partners at Praxis.
We are a community arts organization located in North Collinwood in Cleveland, and we specialize in all things fiber art.
Praxis was founded as a solution to the downsized fiber arts department at Cleveland Institute of Art. We offer classes and memberships to everyone interested in learning a new fiber arts process, such as silk marbling, or weaving, yarn dyeing, natural dyeing, and spinning yarn. We have an artist residency program in our digital weaving lab, and we also offer a wonderful program in natural dyeing where we grow indigo across 4 vacant parcels in North and South Collinwood. Please join us for many of these wonderful community events and classes.
So in last week's session, we heard a little bit some of the basics of the instrument with Marshall Griffith in a fantastic presentation. And now it is about time to take our knowledge to the next level with our dear friend and partner, Caroline Altmans. Caroline is a pianist, presenter, and pedagogue. Her playing has been broadcast globally on radio and television stations, and she was featured on the documentary series Living the Classical Life. Carolina recorded 6 solo CDs on the Filia Mundi label. She serves as a jury member of national and international competitions and on the faculty of various piano festivals. She's also been a part of our selection jury for the 2021 Cleveland International Piano Competition. As an international Steinway artist, Steinway Superior recording artist, and Fulbright scholar, Caroline is also a professor of piano at the Youngstown State Conservatory, at the Youngstown State University, of course. So I am now excited and thrilled to welcome Caroline Altmans.
Hello, everybody. Tonight we are going to delve into listening to music without getting lost. Now, the other day I was in a concert, chamber music, string quartet. I absolutely adored their playing. And suddenly I find myself as if I'm waking up. It was like there was a bit missing of the music, and I had just gone in my head somewhere completely different. I had gotten lost. So this happens really to everybody, including myself, and I'm sure it's happened to you as well. So tonight we want to hone in on 5 different skills on how to increase your ability to deeply listen to music and to enjoy your listening process a little bit more. My first piece on tonight's program is by the French Baroque composer François Couperin. The piece is called Les Petits Moulins Avon, which means the Little Windmills. Now, this is Baroque, and that's ages ago. Couperin was born in 1688. And there isn't so much wiggle room yet to show motion. but he's trying to show how the blades of the windmill turn. How does he do it? He uses scales. And that's pretty much already all. Now, mind you, the instrument during the Baroque was much smaller, and the ways of expressing were a little bit more constrained than they are nowadays. Now, my first chapter of tonight's listening series is called The Art Connection. You see, every piece of music was written at a time when also art was created. And it's sometimes a good idea to take a look at the artwork that was made during a certain time when the music was composed and compare the two. And that's what I'd like to do with you tonight. So let's please now have a look at a art piece by the famous painter Rembrandt. Now, you know Rembrandt was roughly born around the same time as Couperin, and on the painting in front of you, we'll see a windmill. Now check it out, the windmill is right in the center of the painting. It's somewhat overpowering everything in this painting. And if you trace down from the windmill, down, 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 you will see a woman right by that waterway, that river, washing linens. To the left on the painting is a man watching her as she's doing that. And if you look carefully into the painting, you will see a little bit further to the left, but kind of in a dark area of the painting, there's a man with a flock of sheep. Go back to the woman washing the laundry and trace with your eyes way back up. There you see a man who is actually leaning over the wall that is alongside the moat on which the windmill stands. Now let's have a look also at this windmill. You see the four blades and one of them going like a finger pointing into the sky, and the other ones being so clearly delineated against the sky and against the body of the windmill itself. Foreboding the mood in the painting, wouldn't you say? And if you look to the left corner of the painting, you even see a little bit of dark sky coming in, as if there's maybe a storm brewing. Now, what I'd like you to do while we are listening to Couperin and his windmills, I want to see if you cannot, in your inner eye, bring this painting by Rembrandt to life. And with that, channel your deep listening experience into a visual experience. So I would like to perform for you right now The Windmills by Couperin. And while you listen to me perform, see if you cannot make those blades of the windmill start turning to the music of Couperin. Maybe the woman is starting to move gently with her laundry. Maybe that man on the boat is gradually approaching or moving away. Maybe you see that flock of sheep moving. Let's give it a try. So here is Les Petits Moulins Avon by François Couperin. Now, I hope you could actually see the blades of that windmill turn as Couperin was delivering his scales in Les Petits Moulins Avon. We are staying with the art connection, but we are actually moving out of the Baroque much, much closer to where we are. We are going to the Impressionistic painter and to the Impressionistic composer. The composer is Claude Debussy, and the piece that I will play to you is called Bruyere. Now, Bruyere means heather, the plant heather. Now, heather is an inconspicuous little plant. If you take a look at the blossom, you'll see it only has 4 little petals. They're sometimes bluish or a little bit purple. It's not the individual, it's the mass of it that makes an incredible impression. And Debussy was very much intrigued by that. So what he does in his piece is he shows that little tiny bit of a blossom of the heather just at the beginning in a simple bugle call. Listen to this. Quite simple, as to show that little tiny blossom. And then he lets his eye go further to the horizon, and there we see hues of purple, of fuchsia, of lilac, of red, of blue. It is incredible. There's even a little moment where Debussy turns to the minor mode, as if there is a cloud in front of the sun on a perfectly good day. Suddenly the colors are dipped into a little bit of gray, but it doesn't last very long. Now, let's compare Debussy's composition to a painting painted more or less exactly at the same time. The painter's name is William Didier Puget. Now, this is a French non-impressionistic painter for those art lovers of you. He is not actually an impressionist. But what's fascinating is that William Didier Puget had actually a phase where he only painted heather. Let's take a look at a painting by the master and carefully take in what we see on it. Could we please go to the painting of Didier? Very good. So in front of you now is a landscape. And you see on it, as far as the eye can see, the beautiful, beautiful hues of heather. If you look carefully, right in the middle of the painting, you see a man, and you see underneath the man a flock of sheep. To the left of the man, a tree. Can you see how there's a path leading to where the man is standing, the shepherd with his flock? He walked down that path, and now he's sort of in the middle of the painting. Quite remarkable is the tree. Could you for a moment in your head Photoshop out that tree for me? Pretend it's not there. Take a look how bleak the landscape suddenly is. There is no protection, no shadow, in case it gets hot in the middle of the day. So there's a purpose why there is a tree there. And it looks like the shepherd might take a little nap under that tree very soon. Now, if you go further to the horizon on the painting, you will notice that there is smoke coming up. 3 smokes are coming up from houses maybe, and that too makes the painting more quaint, because our shepherd is probably going to one of those houses. Now what I'd like you to do is become again the cinematographer of your own listening experience, and as you listen to Claude Debussy's Bruyere, Heather, I would like you to take a flyover, if you will, of that beautiful landscape that you just saw by Didier. Maybe you can even make things come to life a little bit, and the smoke is actually developing, or the sheep are moving gently, or you even see the heather swaying in the wind, much like Debussy describes it in his piece called Heather. So here is Claude Debussy's Bruyere, Heather. That was Bruyere by Claude Debussy, and I hope you could sort of fly over that landscape painted by Debussy's contemporary Didier. We are staying with the art connection, and we are moving now to another piece by Claude Debussy. This one is called Le Vent dans la Plaine, which means the wind in the plain. But this time, I do not have a painting for you. What I'd like you to do is I would like for you, I should say, to become an artist. Paint your own painting. Make your own film. See what happens in your head as you listen to the piece. Let's take a quick look, though, at the title. The title is called The Wind on the Plain, or In the Plain. And you see the type of wind that Debussy describes in this particular piece is somewhat mischievous. You will hear a gentle, quick-moving wind, but sometimes there is clanging of doors and of windows and loud sounds, quite startling. So it is maybe time to kind of roll up your collar and kind of huddle home, because it's not such a comfortable wind, but not dangerous either, more mischievous. So let's take a listen to Le Vent dans la Plaine by Claude Debussy, The Wind on the Plain by Debussy. Now, I would love to hear from you after my show what you heard, what you saw, if it worked, if you had the imagination of something as you were listening to Le Vent dans la Plaine by Claude Debussy. Now we are moving out of the art connection and into our second chapter on how to listen to music without getting lost. Now, you see, sometimes you just have to take in the craziness of it all. There are some performances and performers that are just, well, you'll have to watch for yourself. My next piece is by George Crumb, living composer George Crumb, born in 1929. He writes a set of pieces called Macrocosm, 12 pieces, each of them, by the way, dedicated to a sign of the zodiac. The one I'm going to play for you is dedicated to Virgo. Maybe there are some Virgos in our audience today. So what Crumb wants me to do for this piece, and any performer who's playing it, is he wants us to use, I'm going to have to get this for you, 2 glass tumblers. Now, these are empty glass tumblers, mind you, and we're going to insert them per stipulation of the composer right onto the strings. Notice how the side of the glass tumbler has to be flat so that this is nice and snug on the strings. You will also hear that I'm singing during this piece, and no, I'm no singer. But George Crumb stipulates quite clearly how I'm supposed to sing, and he actually tells me that the vowels have to be sung like in the word vin, the French word vin as in wine, and the O's like in the French word bon as in good. So we're hearing some uns and some ons in my singing. All in all, this is supposed to imitate the sound of the Indian tambora, an instrument that some of you might have heard, and once you hear me singing, you might actually even recognize it. The piece I will play to you is called Ghost Nocturne for the Druids of Stonehenge. And this is part of the chapter, The Novelty Performance, chapter 2 of our How to Listen to Music Without Getting Lost. You will hear it's all about taking in what's going on as it's going on, and I sure would like to hear what you think about putting things into the piano, strumming on the strings, which I will do in a second as well, and all the above awaiting. So let's take a listen to George Crumb's Ghost Nocturne for the Druids of Stonehenge, dedicated to Virgo. Pretty crazy stuff, isn't it? Those glass tumblers right on the strings. I'm going to take those out now because we will not need them for the remainder of the show. This was by George Crumb, The Druids of Stonehenge. I'm just going to take my little glass tumblers right out of the instrument now. We are moving on to yet another living composer. My next composer on today's program is James Wilding, South African composer James Wilding, born in the year of 1973. And he writes pieces that I think are just beautifully matching to my next chapter of how to listen to music without getting lost. And that is colors in sound. Now, whilst I get ready, let me tell you a little bit something. You see, there are some people who actually see clearly color when they listen to harmonies and certain sounds on the piano. And this is actually called synesthesia. Now, I, for a while there, was absolutely fascinated with synesthesia and thought, I wonder if I have it. Turns out they did research with showing people who have this synesthesia and people who don't or think they don't, music, and said, which color? What do you hear? And the colors are very similar. There isn't so much difference. So that might mean that you too are able to see a clear color if you just take a moment to perceive it. Now, before I can play for you the piece that I will play for you, I need to install my trusty page turner pedal right underneath the piano. This keeps my hands from having to turn the pages, which is very nice. I absolutely love this thing, but one always has to test it a little bit before I can use it. So hold on a second. I've just got to place this under the piano here. Yeah, that should be about right. Now, we are going to listen to Tears of Joy by South African composer James Wilding, a piece based on the interval of a third. Kind of a small interval, but a powerful one. You will see also later in this show. So let's take a listen, and as you listen to Tears of Joy by South African composer James Wilding, see if you don't see any colors in your head. Maybe you'd be surprised as the composer takes you through different modes and through different harmonies, what you might actually be able to see. So here goes Tears of Joy by James Wilding as part of our chapter Colors in Sound in Listening to Music Without Getting Lost. Well, I hope you could hear some colors in the music there, and that helped you a little bit for our third chapter of how to listen to music without getting lost, called Colors in Sound. Now we are moving on to our fourth chapter already of listening to music without getting lost. Let me just quickly take that Turner pedal out of the way. Now, the next chapter, number 4, is called The Story Behind the Music. And I have 2 pieces for you for the story behind the music. The first one is by Franz Schubert, Viennese composer just on the cusp of the classical and the romantic style, and more or less halfway between Couperin, my very first piece, and where we are nowadays in the sense of music history. We will listen to one of the last pieces that Schubert ever wrote. He did not become an old man, just above 30, and this piece that I'll play for you is written 6 months before he actually passed away. Now you see, sometimes it helps a lot if we know more about the composer's life itself. It helps us understand what the composer is trying to express in his or her music, and that's also the case with Franz Schubert. You see, research has more or less 100% established that Franz Schubert was gay. Now this at the time was not something you could live. So he was somewhat of a recluse. Maybe he hid from the world, and maybe he full well knew that he better stay to himself. So how do we find this in the music? That, of course, is difficult. But I will show you one feature of Franz Schubert's music that permeates most of his compositional style. You see, Franz Schubert wrote 600 songs for voice and piano, almost 600. And in those songs, we of course have lyrics and we have music. And with that, we know a little bit how the composer sets what subject matters to what style of music. And what I find in Schubert's music is that he often uses the minor mode, so this being the minor mode, to express things that are rather upbeat and quite positive, whilst he uses the major mode to depict things that are maybe more introverted or maybe even sad. And that's also the case in the piece I will play to you. Prime example, remember how I told you about those 600 songs by Franz Schubert? You see, he wrote a cycle that's called A Winter's Journey, Die Winterreise, my all-time favorite, although I must say I love pretty much everything by Franz Schubert. Now this cycle contains a song where a man goes into a city, a village, in the winter. All of it plays in the winter, and the man, our protagonist, is on foot. And you see him walk, and in the song he is depicted as looking inside the windows of families, and there they sit together in the warmth, in the comfort of each other's presence. And he writes this in such beautiful ways in a major mode, but so remote as to explain and describe the happiness of other people that he can never be part of. Whilst everything he writes in the minor mode is like a comfortable old shoe. Might not be beautiful, but it is what you settle for. It's what you know. It is what you have to live with and what you learn to live with. And that is also the case a little bit in the piece that I will play to you now by Franz Schubert, Klavierstück in E-flat minor, which simply means piano piece in E-flat minor, Deutsch number 946. For those connoisseurs of you, they will recognize that's a very high number, and with that, close to the end of Schubert's life. Listen to the sections. We've got an outgoing, bubbly section that is written in E-flat minor. And then comes a most heart-wrenching middle section, written in B major. but so hard to reach that happiness of that middle section. And then we go back to E flat minor, which we know, that minor that we've become comfortable with. So here we go. Franz Schubert's Klavierstück in E flat minor. I hope you could imagine how this man is walking through that winter landscape all by himself, looking through the window panes into happier family homes. We are staying with chapter 4 of how to listen to music without getting lost. Now this time we are going not about the story of the composer, but we're going with the story of the piece itself. The composer will be Leos Janáček. Now Janáček writes a cycle that's called On an Overgrown Path, and in that he has some marvelous and very descriptive pieces. One of them is called A Blown Away Leaf. Janáček is Czech, so what I thought we'll do is, rather than me giving you a story like the one with the wanderer going through that winter village, I would like you to be your own story writer now and create a story behind the music all for yourself. Remember, it is called A Blown Away Leaf, so maybe something to do with the city of Prague. That's what I could imagine. And I'm kind of envisioning a leaf maybe blowing through that city and taking you into corners you never imagined you would go to. Let's see if you can spin that storyline on your own a little bit further as we're wandering through the cobblestone back alleys of the beautiful city of Prague, listening to Leos Janáček, A Blown Away Leaf. I hope you were able to take a stroll through the magnificent city of Prague, following that leaf and discovering things you never thought you might find. So this was the chapter, the story behind the music, chapter number 4 in tonight's presentation about listening to music without getting lost. Now we're moving to the last chapter, and that is called absolute music. Sometimes, you see, the composer doesn't want a story. The composer doesn't want a program or an imagination. The composer writes nothing with glasses and crazy singing. The composer just wants the music to stand on its own terms, and that is called absolute music. The main protagonist, the main composer, there are many, but the maybe most famous composer writing absolute music is Ludwig van Beethoven. Now you might ask, now how do I listen to this? Where's my art? Where's my story? Where are my colors? Where's something to see inside the piano? When listening to absolute music, what really helps is to know the piece itself a little bit. Now what I'll do is I'll give you a crash course about the piece we are listening to, and then we'll see how it goes. I will play to you the first movement of Beethoven's Waldstein Sonata, dedicated to Graf Waldstein, who was not only a close buddy of Ludwig van Beethoven, but also his sponsor. The form and shape of the piece you're going to listen to is called Sonata Form. What the composer does is he introduces 2 materials. Material number 1 sounds like this. Quite rhythmic and based on the third. Remember how we already had that third in Tears of Joy, that small little interval. Now what Beethoven absolutely loves to do in his composition style is to take that seed of an idea, stick it in the ground, and up comes the most magnificent tree in the form of symphonies, of these piano sonatas, of pretty much everything he writes. He just loves to work with what's called a motive. Now remember, we have this one theme area down here, and then another one up here. Much more gentle and quite different. Now, this is how sonata form works. Let's just say in the very basic terms. We've got one theme and another theme. The composer takes both themes, sticks them in a tumbler. Anything goes. Bits are chopped off, newly rearranged. You will hear those motifs flying all over creation. So you might hear just a bit of something and the tail end of something else. So he mixes and matches, he develops, that's what it's called, those 2 theme areas. On the other end of this development, we will have both our themes again. But they come out differently. They come out in different key areas, really. You'll hear they sound different. And I think that that is the fascination of sonata form, because what happens is we've got protagonist number 1, protagonist number 2, going through that tumbler ringer, coming out the other end. It's like that Chinese proverb, you never swim in the same river twice. Those 2 people went through something together or maybe separately, and they're changed by it. And I think therein lies the fascination of sonata form for so many composers. Now remember, this is absolute music, so you have to take it in the way it is. Let's have a listen together to the first movement of the magnificent sonata called Waldstein Sonata. It's opus 53 in C major by Ludwig van Beethoven, our last chapter of how to listen to music without getting lost.
Bravo, Carolina. What a
thank you.
fantastic performance and what a presentation. I'm sure I'm speaking in the name of everybody who was with us tonight.
Thank you, Yaron. Thank you.
It was so delightful, and we have
You have
some
questions? Yes, let's
from
hear
the
it.
audience.
Oh, I
And
hope I can answer them.
I have a feeling you can. So let's start with a couple of interesting questions.
Yes.
The pieces you played tonight all sound really different from one another. Is it because they were written at different times? Is there anything I can listen for to be able to say, oh, that's Baroque and oh, that's classical?
Oh, good point. So, all right, very, very good question. Remember my very, very first piece, the one with the windmills and the scales in them? There's a lot of ornaments, lots and lots of trills, that sort of thing. That's probably an indicator for Baroque, plus relatively steady tempos. Whilst what I just played for you, this tumultuous edginess, that often is classical style. And then we had the Schubert, this more like from the heart, that's most likely going to be romantic music. And that is a good foot in the door to determine when our pieces are written. And yes, when they're from different time periods, they will sound quite different.
Thank you so much for this answer, which I'm sure was helpful to everybody. Okay, a couple of more questions.
Yes,
so,
love
as
it.
a performer, do
Yeah.
you ever get lost in the music while you're playing? How do you balance getting swept up in the music while making sure that you play all the right
That
notes?
is a good question. Now, listen, this is a dangerous one, because sometimes you just get so drawn away that you think, oh, I'm on stage, I better pay attention. So it's a little bit of a give and take, a to and fro, sometimes control, just pay attention, other times just, making music and getting lost in it. And it's a game you have to play almost inside yourself. How much can I let go? How much control do I have to have? Did I ever crash? Oh, yes, but you just know how to handle it, you know how to cover your tracks, and you move on.
Yes, I think many books have been written about performance,
Yes.
and I think as performers, we all know how challenging it may be
Yes.
sometimes to go up there on stage. So this is an absolutely wonderful question. We're going to deal a little bit more with performance next week.
Yes,
And I
yes.
have here another very interesting
Yeah.
question. What's the craziest extended technique you've ever been asked to perform on a piano? Do composers often add glass tumblers to their prepared piano pieces? Does this harm the piano?
Oh, that is a good question. And I was going to say that and I forgot to say it. No, it does not harm the pianos. However, you cannot just put everything and anything in the piano. Just really quickly, from a piano lover's point of view, anything that is wet is a no-no, because this is a wood instrument. So what have I done that's pretty crazy? Nails, but not into the piano, obviously, but stuck between the strings is something I've done. And there's also a weaving technique where you can weave things between the strings, but I'm by no means a specialist in prepared piano pieces. And I would say pushing glass tumblers over the strings is pretty much as far out as I usually do it, I would say.
Wonderful, wonderful, Carolina. Well, we have a question from Matthias. We just heard you say, I'm just saying to our public, that we just heard you say Ludwig van Beethoven, which is the way you say it much better than I do. So Matthias is asking, how many languages do you speak?
Well, I speak English, as you can tell. I speak German because I am German. And I am learning Chinese, but not as much as Yaron, who speaks incredibly good Chinese, and I'm very, very envious about that. I do speak French because my mom was brought up in a French boarding school, and when I was little, she used to speak French, so that's sort of like a mother language to me as well. And I had to take Latin in school, that's 9 years. And with Latin, you kind of got your Italian, sort of, also a little bit. And with that, maybe a bit of Spanish, maybe, but not great. I would say my real languages are German and English. And thank you, Matthias, I guess, for asking.
Lovely. Okay, so we'll have one last question. from our
Yes,
public.
you'd love it.
This is, can you explain some of the connections between Impressionism in painting and Impressionism in music?
That's a very good question as well. One very, very interesting discovery for those music lovers and art lovers amongst you is that the Impressionistic style of painting loves to play with a three-dimensional event. So, if you come really close, say to a Monet, you will see how the oil painting is brought on thick and there's a three-dimensionality of the oil on the canvas. Step further away, you think that's pretty crazy. I can't even make out what is really on the painting, like I'm talking maybe 3 feet away. Step further away, suddenly you see the water lilies. And that effect of layering from the observer's distance is something that also happens in impressionistic music, where the composer will write something in the high register, in the middle register, and in the low register, and float those 3 registers like 3 dimensions through their pieces.
Carolina, this has been such a delight being here with you and listening to this wonderful presentation, of course, the wonderful performances.
Thank you very much.
We are really grateful in the name of Piano Cleveland and all our friends. We're grateful to you for being with us today.
It's been my pleasure, and I hope I see you at the competition, future armchair judges.
Exactly. July 8th to August 11. We hope you all have it marked on your calendars.
Yes.
So with that, I would like to thank you all so much for being with us tonight. I would like to extend a special thank you to our very dear staff who's working hard daily, bringing you this program as well as many, many others, and this competition that we're all working very hard to bring to you in a particularly challenging time, and also to all our dear friends, donors, board of directors, that all are part of the Piano Cleveland family. Next week, Wednesday at 7:30, this is May 19, I am gonna be here with the last presentation of the listening series, and I'm going to speak to you about what makes it great. So when we go to listen to a performance, how do we know what is actually the difference between a good pianist and a great pianist? What are kind of the elements that we should be looking for when we listen to the contestants during the Cleveland International Piano Competition? So I hope that with this wonderful presentation today and also the fantastic presentation by Marshall next week, you're gonna already come with quite a knowledge to prepare you for being an official armchair juror during the competition. I would like to wish you all a good evening and looking forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye from the Bob Stop.